Hello, everyone. I'm Michael Smith. Welcome to the Lowdown. Today, joining me is Brian Owens. Hello, Brian. Welcome to the show.
Hey, great to be here.
Well, Brian, there's a big trend going around right now, and in the corporate world, the CEOs, the C-suites, top management, talking about high performance, right?
Yes.
And I thought today's something that you kind of brought to my attention, and I'll let you kind of get into the details. But we're going to talk about going beyond high performance. But before we jump into that, give me a little bit about your background, and then we'll get into what that means.
Sure. I've spent over 30 years in leadership, executive leadership in the nonprofit, the faith-based sector, both stateside and overseas. So a lot of strategic planning and staff training, development, fundraising, those kind of things, and coaching.
And coaching. Well, what got you into coaching? Because I know you kind of did a shift from a lot of the faith-based stuff into now the coaching. What is I guess the program you're in or the group you're with now?
Well, I've always been fascinated with human development, wondering how do we become the best versions of ourselves. My graduate training is in that. I was in a program with some great psychologists and philosophers and theologians all looking at how do we grow and how do we develop. And so this was just an opportunity to codify all of that as I've gotten trained as a meta performance coach.
Well, you and I reconnected here not too long ago, and you brought to my attention something called Beyond High Performance. And that just that title right there was like, well, what? Okay, well, first of all, what is high performance? And then, why go beyond high performance? What does that mean?
Well, you think of performance, think of it as a pyramid. You think about, a low performer is someone who's just trying to basically not get fired. That's
okay.
Sure. I low perform my.
I have a job. This time to this time.
Right. Or I low perform my breakfast every morning. I just want to get something in my stomach.
Okay.
Performance is just doing your job, well. That's my taxes, for example, or just doing your job well. High performance is I want to be the best at what I do, and that can actually be a problem if you have a company full of high performers, which sounds strange because we think, we want to have high performers. But the problem is with high performers is that they're often close to feedback. There can be a little bit of a diva complex.
Sure.
And they're
egos.
Yes. And they're often simultaneously overwhelmed and bored. They're overwhelmed because they perceive themselves to be at their max capacity, and they're bored because they're actually not. And then that leads to the next issue is that they're protective of their position on the team, because if they're a high performer, they perceive themselves to be the best. So if you're in a position, if you're not open to feedback, then you've got to, and I don't think this is done necessarily consciously, but there can be I'm going to keep everybody in place under me. I'm going to keep things controlled. So if you have a company full of high performers, there's going to be a cap on your team. And you as an individual, there'll be a cap on your leadership potential.
Well, going through your book, again, the term, meta performer really stuck out. Maybe kind of tell us, what does that mean? What does that entail versus what, we're talking about a high performer.
Right. Well, high performers, they're answering the question of, how can I be the best at what I do? Okay. A meta performer is asking a completely different question about what am I capable of? That's a very open-ended question. So it's like there are some questions that we ask and we get an answer from, and there's some questions we answer to. And the meta performer question of what am I capable of, that's a question you will continue to answer to. So a meta performer is constantly reinventing what high performance is to them. Well,
in your book, I know there's several examples. Maybe kind of give us an example of what a meta performer, maybe somebody famous that we know, or somebody that that might stick out to us.
Well, Walt Disney would be a perfect example.
Okay. Very good example.
Yeah, he's known for saying it's fun to do the impossible. Just you think about what's the movies, theme parks. There's just this and then the company has taken that legacy, and there's a continual emphasis on reinvention.
Well, Walt Disney, that's a great example, Brian. Is there any others that come to mind that are what you would call a meta performer?
Yeah, Lucille Ball would be a great example. Her and her husband created the camera approach to sitcom that we know. And then she went on to, she became a real leader in Hollywood of running a production company, and actually heard about a couple projects coming down the line. And because of Lucille Ball, we have things like Star Trek and Mission Impossible. You wouldn't associate that with her at all.
No.
But she went beyond just the format of acting in film and television to running a company and then bringing these other projects to life.
Well, that's pretty amazing. Now, so how do we make this shift, right? Because the trend is high performance in all different categories. Right. I mean, I see countless of books about this. There's training. I get emails all the time about these workshops and everything. But what would be the shift shift of going beyond a high performance, which you kind of talks about the limitations, to that meta performer? What are some of those shifts you need to make?
There's 4 that you need.
Okay.
The 4 tools that we use to help people shift from high performance to meta performance. The first is you need a shift in your perspective. Starting with the perspective of yourself. Leaders vastly underestimate what they're capable of. This is every leader has the same leadership challenge. It's not HR, it's not finance. Those are all issues.
Okay.
Every leadership person has the same challenge where they're vastly underestimating themselves. They have a diminished perspective on their own capacity. So then they need to make that shift and a perspective on themselves, and then a shift in their craft, how they view their craft. High performers want to be valued for what they bring to the table. Meta performers want to see how big that table can get.
Okay.
So you want to think about that you have a lot more to offer your job, and your job has a lot more to offer you. There's more capacity that you have, and there's more that you can know about the field that you specialize in. Now, this can be true in relationships. You have a lot more to offer your relationships, and your relationships have a lot more to offer you. So that shift needs to happen, and that shift is going to, though, require a shift in your values. You're going to. Most people value comfort.
True.
I like to be comfortable. It's a great thing, but you want to value growth over comfort, because you can't. If you're trying to get comfortable to get happy, you're going to have neither comfort nor happiness.
True, very true. I mean, I think we've seen a lot in our own experiences to understand that.
Yeah.
And then what's maybe the last shift here? You said there's 4 total.
Yeah. So there's 4. So there's a shift in perspective. There's a shift in your values. Then getting comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Okay.
Means that you're going to have to be comfortable getting wrong. So you're going to have to get wrong. Is that high performers get it right, love getting right, love being right. Meta performers love being wrong. Ed Catmull started Pixar, says every day I wake up with 2 assumptions. 1, that I'm radically wrong about something, and 2, that I don't know what that is.
Okay.
Imagine having that person on your team that's open to that kind of feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the fourth shift you want to make is you want to get coachable.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because
Right.
if you're going to get it wrong, you got to be coached in a different avenue.
Right. And I'm not just saying that. I know I'm a coach, but when I say coach, I mean anybody who's regularly involved with helping you explore what you're capable of. So this could be mentors, advisors, counselors, pastors, coaches, 12-step leaders, sponsors, anyone who's invested in that. And when I say coachable, it's not just that you're going to allow coaching. Most people, if you ask them, are you coachable? They'll say, well, yeah. And then they mean that if someone has feedback, they want to be open to it. But by coachable, I mean that you're actively, aggressively pursuing it.
Okay.
And that's the shift.
Well, let me ask you this in a personal question, and I'll talk a little bit as well. But have you seen this work in your own life, and maybe share that story with us?
Yeah, totally. I was at a nonprofit. The first 15 years I was at this nonprofit, I had been in executive leadership for 7 years. I felt like I was high performing as in my strategic planning and staff development and the fundraising, the donor relationships. Was radically interested in growth and transformation, so I went into this graduate school program that I mentioned earlier, and was under these top-notch philosophers and psychologists and theologians. It's a great program, but it put me in this space where I'm exploring what I'm capable of. I'm pursuing growth. It was not a comfortable space to be in when you've got somebody with a doctorate in psychology, and you just feel kind of exposed in a classroom.
Yeah,
there were days
yeah.
I thought, did I really wish I'd taken this, maybe something else, because it was not always easy.
Sure.
So putting myself in that kind of an environment, and regularly being exposed to my blind spots, seeing where I'm wrong. And, I had been so successful in leadership, in this role, and yet I wasn't successful in relationships. I was still single. This is my late 30s. And so I got, between my mentor, I had to go to this program required 6 months of therapy. It was so helpful.
Oh, really? Wow.
I stayed another 12. And one of the things we talked about was, I would love to meet someone to marry, and this isn't happening yet. And so my therapist said, why don't you get a hold of one of your ex-girlfriends and get some feedback from her? So I was radically
That's interesting.
Yeah, it was. It was very.
I don't know if I'd want to call many of mine.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
But my point is, I was putting myself in a place where I was trying to go beyond what I thought I was capable of in relationships, beyond where I was. So being exposed, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, getting coachable, receiving that feedback. And so during that season of life, I met this actor, this actress who had moved to California to pursue film and television, and we've been married now for 18 years.
Oh, congratulations!
3 kids,
I've
2 teenagers.
I've definitely met Tracy,
Yeah.
so wonderful woman.
Yeah.
Well,
And there's still more to unlock. There's still more capacity I have. So I still have a coach. I'm still 18 years into marriage, well into midlife, 2 teenagers and a kid in junior high. There's still more to discover, more blind spots and more capacity to unpack.
Well, I think it's whether it's in your personal life. I mean, again, with your spouse, you got to push each other. Everyone plateaus. You could plateau in relationships. I've plateaued in business. Where you're doing the same thing over and over. You get, like you said, you get bored, and you got to challenge yourself to push yourself beyond a different boundary. Whether it's taking a certification, taking a course. I just did an MIT a space economy course.
Nice.
I talk about feeling really out of place with a bunch of engineers and a bunch of aerospace engineers, et cetera, in there, some military personnel. But it was a lot of fun, met some cool people. And, but I think you got to continue to push and challenge yourself, because you hit plateaus in every avenue in life.
Right.
But tell me a little bit more about kind of, you've got, I mean, since I've known you, going beyond high performance, just tell me a little bit more about that program, what it entails, and, I guess, who is it for?
Well, anybody that's looking at their lives, because life's like a video game. You've got another level.
Yes. That's a good way to put it. I like those analogies.
Another level of capacity,
Yeah.
another level of challenge, another level to go to. So anybody who's looking for that next level in life, who wants to go after a vision that's thrilling, that's exciting, and wants to get out of their own way. So, I help my clients, get clear on a vision that's thrilling, look at the mindset issues that are getting in the way, and then laying out a strategy to bring that vision to life.
Well, Brian, those are all good things. I think these are, positive, for people that want to challenge themselves, get out of the plateau and see what's beyond the next level. Then I think this is a great book, a great strategy. And I want to thank you for coming in and sharing a little bit about that today.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be here.